To graph a line like y equals 2x minus 4, you can guess x and y values that make this equation true and plot them in the xy plane. I'd like to actually take a more systematic approach to getting coordinates for this line. What I'm going to do is create a table of values. On one side I'll put x, on the other side I'll put y, and I'm just going to choose some things for x and then solve for the corresponding y values. So I'm going to put x is equal to, let's say, -1, 0, 1, and 2. With these x values, I can go to my equation y equals 2x minus 4, put these numbers in place of x, and solve for y. So let's do that. If I start with -1, I'll put -1 in place of this x and solve for y. So x equals -1 gives us y is equal to 2 times -1 minus 4. This is -2 minus 4, and I get -6. So at -1, the corresponding y value is -6. For, let's say, x is equal to 0, same idea. I'll take my equation, I'll put 0 in place of x, and when I solve for y, I get -4. For x is equal to 1, I get y is equal to 2 times 1 minus 4. That is 2 minus 4, or just -2. And if I use the last one, x is equal to 2, I get y is equal to 2 times 2 minus 4. That's 4 minus 4, and that is just 0. Here's what all this information means. If x equals -1, y is equal to -6, that is something that I can plot in the x, y plane. So to plot this point, I start at 0, 0, I go left 1, down 6, and I'll put a point right here. I can do this for the remaining points as well. Like here I have 0, -4. So I start at 0, meaning I don't go left or right. I go down 4 places, and I'll put my next point right here. That is 0, -4. For the next point, I have 1, -2. That means I go right 1 and down 2, so I get this point here. And I have one more, x equals 2, y is equal to 0. That means I start here, I go over 2, 0 means I do not go up or down, and so this is my final location. All you really need is as many points until you think you know what the whole graph looks like. For me, I know it's a line, it's just going to be the equation that goes through those points here. If I'm looking to just get a general idea or sketch, I think I have enough. I can just draw the line going through the points I just plotted. This is the general idea behind graphing. We started by just taking the equation and guessing points, but this is a much nicer way to go about it, where you write an x and a y, you choose some x's, the ones you choose are entirely up to you, but then you have to solve for the corresponding y values. Once you have them, you plot them, and then draw the equation going through the points that you have. Just a couple of other quick things. There's 2 important points on this graph. This point and this point. This is the x-axis, and this is the y-axis. The point right here that's on the y-axis, we call the y-intercept, which I'll abbreviate y-int. That's just the place where the graph crosses over this particular axis. Likewise, this point here, it lies on the x-axis. We call this point the x-intercept. And that is it for this example. Okay, let's try this one more time where I want to graph the line 2x plus 3y is equal to 6. Now, if you try to use the strategy of creating a table in this example, it won't be as easy to work with because the equation isn't solved for y. So there's another strategy that I wanted to show you for graphing the entire equation. All you need to graph a line is 2 points. An easy way to get a couple of points is as follows. If you let x equal 0 and you put that into the equation usually simplifies very nicely. Here's why. I put 0 in place of x, and if I do that, the first part just goes away and you're left with 3y. Dividing both sides by 3 gives y is equal to 2. What we just figured out is if x is 0, y is equal to 2. I'm going to plot this. Okay, 0, 2. That means I start at 0, 0. I'm not going left or right, but I do go up 2 places here. The point I just found is the y-intercept. If you let x equals 0 and solve for y, that point has got to be the y-intercept. If we want to graph this line, we just need one other point. The other point that we're going to get is going to be the x-intercept, and it's going to be just as easy to solve for as well. This time, instead of letting x equal 0, I'm going to let y equal 0. So let's see what happens. In my equation, I get 2x plus 3 times y, which I'm choosing to be 0. And that still is equal to 6. And the part with 0 just cancels, and you're left with 2x is 6. If you divide both sides by 2, you get x is equal to 3. This time, what we just found out, that if x is equal to 3, y is equal to 0. If I plot this point, I start at 0, 0. I go 3 places to the right. I don't go up or down. And this is the final location, so I'll put a point there. This is on the x-axis, so this is the x-intercept. This is a nice strategy for dealing with equations like this one, where they're not solved for y. If you're trying to graph a line, and you can find the x and y intercept very quickly, that is all you need to get a general sketch of the graph. Okay, so the line going through it looks something like this. Again, it's not perfect. I'm not using a ruler. I just need to have a general idea of what this graph looks like. And that is it for this example.